The Grand Chamber of the Galactic Council fell silent as the doors parted. 12 humans in neat gray uniforms entered, led by a tall man with steel gray hair and piercing blue eyes. Admiral Jack Reynolds walked with the confidence of someone who had fought his way through life and emerged victorious each time. "So these are the humans," whispered one of the council members, a tall blue-skinned being with multiple eyes. The whisper, meant to be private, echoed in the vast chamber. The council room housed representatives from the 27 most powerful species in the known galaxy. Massive beings with armored hides sat next to willowy creatures of pure energy. Some breathed methane, others survived on radiation. Despite their differences, they all shared one thing. They were unimpressed by the humans. Admiral Reynolds approached the central podium and bowed slightly. "On behalf of Earth and all human colonies, I thank the Galactic Council for this audience." High Counselor Drox, a massive reptilian being covered in iridescent scales, leaned forward. "We have reviewed your application for galactic recognition, Admiral. Your species has achieved faster-than-light travel, established colonies on 7 worlds, and built a fleet." The pause before the word fleet did not go unnoticed. From the side of the chamber, General Vark of the Dravax Empire snorted loudly. The Dravax were known throughout the galaxy as fearsome warriors, their empire built on conquest and maintained through intimidation. "You call 12 ships a fleet." Vark's voice boomed across the chamber. "My personal escort numbers more vessels than your entire defense force." Reynolds smiled thinly but said nothing. A hologram appeared in the center of the chamber, displaying the 12 ships of Earth's defense force. Compared to the massive dreadnoughts of the Dravax or the elegant star cruisers of the Elleran Confederacy, the human vessels looked plain and unremarkable. "Each of my battle cruisers could destroy your entire collection of metal scraps," Vark continued, gesturing dismissively at the hologram. Several council members laughed openly. Others had the decency to hide their amusement. High Counselor Drox raised a clawed hand for silence. Despite General Vark's directness, he raises valid concerns. The galaxy can be dangerous. Pirates, rogue states, and various threats lurk in the void between stars. Your defense capabilities seem limited. Reynolds nodded. "We understand the risks, High Counselor. Humans have always made do with what we have." The Council proceeded to outline the territory Earth would be granted, a small sector on the outer rim, far from major trade routes and with few resource-rich worlds. It was clearly the galactic equivalent of a slum, the worst neighborhood in a vast cosmic city. "This is what we can offer," Drox concluded, clearly expecting protests or negotiation. Reynolds surprised them all by nodding immediately. "We accept with gratitude." General Vark's eyes narrowed. "You accept, without argument." "We ask only for non-interference within our assigned territory," Reynolds replied evenly. "We'll manage our own affairs and defenses." After a brief discussion, the Council agreed. The humans were no threat after all. Their territory was small, their ships few and weak. What harm could come from granting them autonomy in their little corner of space? The meeting concluded with formal signatures and diplomatic pleasantries. As the humans prepared to leave, General Vark approached Reynolds. "A word of advice, human," he said, towering over the Admiral. "Build more ships, bigger ships, or don't come crying when stronger powers take what they want from your worlds." Reynolds looked up at the massive alien general and smiled. "Thank you for your concern, General. We'll keep that in mind." Later, aboard the flagship Terra, Reynolds entered secure communications with Earth Command. The holographic face of Fleet Commander Wilson appeared before him. "How did it go?" Wilson asked. Reynolds smiled. "Exactly as expected. They've underestimated us completely." Wilson nodded slowly. "Perfect." The history of humanity's journey to the stars was not recorded in the grand archives of the Galactic Council. If it had been, perhaps they would have shown more caution. Tom Miller stood in the center of the massive underground facility, watching as workers assembled what looked like toy ships compared to the behemoths other species launched into space. As chief engineer of Earth's Defense Force, he had spent 15 years perfecting what the Council had dismissed as metal scraps. Running final tests on the drone bay doors, called out his assistant Mark from a nearby console. No signs of EM leakage. These babies are invisible until we want them seen. Tom nodded, pride evident in his expression. Earth had taken a different path to the stars, one born from necessity rather than abundance. Council species never had to fight for resources like we did, Tom said, running his hand along the smooth hull of what appeared to be a simple patrol vessel. They built bigger because they could. We built smarter because we had to. The ship under his palm, designated Hawk 7, was officially listed as a light patrol craft in Earth's reports to the Galactic Council. What those reports failed to mention was that 70% of the ship's interior consisted of drone bays housing over 500 combat drones, each the size of a small car, but with the firepower of a traditional destroyer. The facility buzzed with activity as technicians worked on different aspects of Earth's true defense system. In one corner, scientists fine-tuned the quantum entanglement network that allowed all drones to act as a single organism, coordinating attacks with millisecond precision. In another area, weapons specialists calibrated energy weapons that drew power from fold space, a technology the Council races considered theoretical at best. Admiral Reynolds on Secure Channel 1 announced the facility's eye. Tom moved to a private communications booth and accepted the call. Reynolds appeared on screen, still aboard his ship in Council space. "They bought it completely," Reynolds said, a rare smile crossing his face. "The Dravak's general practically laughed us out of the chamber." "And our territory assignment?" Tom asked. "Exactly what we hoped for. Outer rim, minimal oversight." Reynolds leaned closer to the screen. "The perfect testing ground." Tom nodded. Earth scientists had detected unusual energy readings from that sector years ago, readings that suggested the presence of fold space access points, gateways that could revolutionize travel and energy production. The Council, with their rigid adherence to traditional space-time theories, had never bothered to investigate. "How long before they realize what we're doing?" Tom asked. Reynolds shrugged. "Years, maybe decades. They see what they expect to see." A weak newcomer grateful for scraps. The Admiral's expression grew serious. "The President wants Phase 2 accelerated. Get the stealth carriers ready for deployment within 6 months. Tom whistled low. "That's pushing it, but we'll make it work." The screen split to show a third person joining their conversation. Dr. Lisa Ford, head of the Quantum Communications Division. Her eyes were bright with excitement. "We've done it," she said without preamble. "Full quantum link across 10 light-years with 0 delay. The drone swarms can now operate beyond our wildest projections." This was the breakthrough they had been waiting for. Traditional combat fleets relied on light-speed communications, creating fatal delays in battlefield coordination. With quantum entanglement, Earth's drones could respond instantly to threats, no matter the distance. "Perfect timing," Reynolds said. "The Council thinks we've accepted our place at the bottom of the galactic hierarchy. Little do they know we're about to rewrite the rules of space warfare." Tom looked through the viewing window at the assembly floor below, where workers were loading the 1,000th stealth drone into Hawk 7's belly. "They mocked our tiny fleet," he said quietly. Reynolds finished the thought with grim satisfaction. "Soon they'll learn that size isn't everything." 6 months after Earth's admission to the Galactic Council, alarm bells rang across Council space. The Krell, a warrior race from beyond the charted sectors, had launched a series of devastating attacks on the outer colonies of multiple Council species. In the emergency Council chamber, holographic displays showed burning worlds and shattered defense stations. The massive Krell warships, each nearly the size of a small moon, moved with surprising speed, striking without warning and disappearing before substantial forces could respond. 3 Elorian colonies wiped out, reported a thin, blue-skinned diplomat, his voice trembling. Billions dead or missing. 2 of our frontier worlds have gone dark, added the representative from the Volare Confederation. Our battle fleets arrived to find only debris and radiation. General Vark of the Dravaks pounded his armored fist on the table. The Krell must be crushed. I have dispatched 30 dreadnoughts to protect our borders. High Counselor Drox raised a clawed hand for silence. We must coordinate our response. The Krell have never ventured this far into Council space before. A small light blinked on the communication panel. Admiral Reynolds was requesting to join the emergency session. When his hologram appeared, he stood calmly, hands clasped behind his back. Earth extends its sympathies for your losses, he said formally. We're monitoring the situation closely. General Vark sneered. Monitoring? What else can you do with your toy ships? The Krell would swallow your entire fleet in one bite. Reynolds ignored the jab. We merely wish to be kept informed of Council defensive strategies, as the Krell movements suggest they may be working their way around the outer rim. The tactical display confirmed Reynolds' observation. The pattern of attacks formed an arc that, if continued, would eventually reach human space. The humans are right to be concerned. Drox acknowledged. However, our priority must be protecting core Council worlds. We simply don't have the resources to defend every frontier sector. Reynolds' expression didn't change. We understand. Earth will manage its own defense. General Vark laughed darkly. With what? Your 12 patrol boats. We'll make do with what we have, Reynolds replied evenly. The meeting continued without further input from the human admiral. Defense plans were drawn up, fleets repositioned, evacuations organized, all focused on protecting the wealthy core worlds of the major Council species. 2 weeks later, sensors detected a massive Krell battle group changing course. Their new heading: direct for human space. In the Council chamber, the news was received with mixed reactions. The humans don't stand a chance, murmured the Elorian diplomat. Perhaps the Krell will be occupied long enough for us to strengthen our defenses, suggested another representative coldly. High Counselor Drox at least had the decency to contact Reynolds directly. Admiral, our long-range sensors have detected approximately 50 Krell warships on approach to your territory. Each vessel is at least 20 times the size of your largest ship. Reynolds nodded calmly. Thank you for the warning, Counselor. We regret that we cannot spare any forces to assist you, Drox continued, uncomfortable with what amounted to abandoning a council member. No assistance required, Reynolds replied. This is our fight. Admiral, Drox said, genuinely concerned. Your 12 ships will have to face 50 Krell dreadnoughts. Even with your entire colony worlds evacuated, the loss of territory. Reynolds interrupted with a slight smile. Your concern is appreciated, Counselor. But I'd assure you, we have the situation under control. The communication ended, leaving the Council members puzzled by the humans' apparent calm in the face of certain destruction. On the bridge of his flagship Terra, Admiral Reynolds turned to his communications officer. Send the coded message to all ships and colonies. Operation Hornet's Nest is now active. Throughout human space, hidden facilities sprang to life. Beneath the surfaces of seemingly unimportant moons, massive doors slid open. What the Council had never suspected was about to be revealed. Ellis Colony hung like a blue-green jewel against the blackness of space. As the outermost human settlement, it was home to just under 1 million people, miners, researchers, and frontier families who had built a life on this distant world. Now, emergency sirens wailed across the colony's domed cities. People rushed to evacuation ships, carrying only what they could in small bags. Colony Governor Bill West supervised from the Central Command Center, his weathered face grim but determined. Last civilian transport leaves in 20 minutes, reported his assistant. We're at 95% evacuation. West nodded. And the emergency defense protocols. All automated systems activated. The mining stations have been converted as ordered. Outside the atmosphere, Admiral Reynolds' flagship Terra took position alongside 2 other vessels. the Defender, and the Guardian. The three small ships formed a triangle in high orbit, appearing pathetically small against the vastness of space. Krell fleet will arrive in 17 minutes, reported Lieutenant Davis from the sensor station. 53 warships confirmed. Reynolds nodded calmly. Status of the other 9 ships. In position throughout the system, sir. All drone bays report ready. Quantum link is stable. On the main view screen, a magnified image showed the approaching Krell armada. Each ship was a massive construct of dark metal, bristling with weapon ports and surrounded by energy fields. Their design resembled ancient Earth predators, all teeth and claws and armored plates. They're broadcasting on open frequencies, Davis said. Let's hear it, Reynolds ordered. A harsh, guttural voice filled the bridge. Attention, human vessels. I am War Commander Grack of the Krell Dominion. Your territory is now property of the Dominion. Surrender and be enslaved or resist and be exterminated. Reynolds signaled for a channel to be opened. War Commander Grack, this is Admiral Jack Reynolds of Earth Defense Force. We respectfully decline both options. This system is under human protection. Withdraw your forces immediately. A harsh sound that might have been laughter came through the speakers. Brave words from such tiny ships. Your council friends have abandoned you, human. My sensors show only 3 vessels defending this world. Are these children's toys all you could spare? Reynolds smiled faintly. 3 ships are all we need, Commander. Your death will be painful for such insolence. Grack snarled. First wave, advance and destroy these human toys. 10 massive Krell warships broke from the main fleet, accelerating toward Ellis Colony. Each was at least 30 times larger than the Terra. Reynolds watched them approach on the tactical display. All ships, maintain position. Wait for my mark. The bridge crew sat tense, but focused as the Krell ships entered weapons range. They're charging weapons, Davis reported. Reynolds nodded. Now, throughout the Ellis system, hidden transmitters activated. From the 12 Earth ships, from the surfaces of asteroids, from beneath the ice caps of Ellis itself, thousands of small panels slid open. Drone swarms launching, Davis announced, a hint of excitement breaking through his professional demeanor. On the Krell flagship, War Commander Grack watched with amusement as the first wave closed on the pathetic human defenders. Suddenly, his tactical officer shouted in alarm. New contacts. Thousands of them. Grack stomped to the sensor display. Impossible. The space around the 3 human ships seemed to shimmer and then erupt with movement. What had appeared to be empty vacuum was suddenly filled with thousands of small craft, each no bigger than a shuttle. They poured from hidden bays in the human vessels, from concealed launchers on asteroids, from the planet itself. What trickery is this? Grack demanded. On the Terra, Reynolds gave the command. All drones. Execute attack pattern Alpha. Target the lead vessels. The swarm moved like a single organism, thousands of drones flowing through space with perfect coordination. They surrounded the first Krell warship, finding weak points in its shields that no large vessel could exploit. Precision energy beams from hundreds of drones struck the same shield points simultaneously, creating a momentary gap. Other drones immediately rushed through, attaching to the hull and drilling through with specialized cutting tools. The lead Krell ship is going dark, Davis reported. Internal systems failing. One by one, the 10 Krell vessels found themselves swarmed by hundreds of drones each, their massive weapons useless against targets too small and numerous to track. Reynolds opened the channel again. War Commander Grack, perhaps you'd like to reconsider your options. In the Galactic Council's central monitoring station, alarms blared as data poured in from the Ellis system. Technicians rushed between consoles, their faces showing confusion and disbelief. This can't be right, muttered the head technician, a 4-armed Zeltaran named Mox. Run the sensor data again. His assistant, already on her 3rd analysis, shook her head. Numbers confirmed. Krell assault force is being decimated by thousands of small craft. High Counselor Drox burst into the monitoring station, followed closely by General Vark and several other council representatives. "Report," Drox demanded. Mox gestured to the main display. "The Krell launched their attack on human space 6 hours ago. We expected the 3 human ships to be destroyed immediately." The display showed a tactical overview of the Ellis system. 10 Krell warships were now visible only as debris fields. The remaining Krell vessels had pulled back to a defensive formation. "What happened?" Vark growled, his massive frame looming over the technicians. Mox enhanced the image, focusing on one of the human ships. The view zoomed in to show hundreds of small craft swarming around it. "Each human vessel appears to be a carrier for drone weapons," Mox explained. "Not dozens, but hundreds of them, and there are more launching from concealed bases throughout their system." Vark slammed his fist on the console. "Impossible. Their ships are too small to carry so many drones." "That's just it," Mox said, bringing up the specifications Earth had submitted to the Council. These ships were designed specifically to appear smaller and less capable than they are. The interior space is almost entirely dedicated to drone storage and launch systems. Drox leaned closer to the display. "And the drones themselves. Like nothing we've seen before," Mox said, highlighting one of the small craft. "Quantum-linked for perfect coordination. No communication delays." The council members watched in stunned silence as the tactical display updated. 3 more Krell ships had been disabled, their massive hulls now dark and drifting. "This changes everything," whispered an Elorian diplomat. "If the humans have this technology..." General Vark's expression darkened. "They deceived us. They claim to have only 12 ships. Technically, they do have only 12 ships," Mox pointed out. "They just failed to mention what those ships contained." High Counselor Drox activated the emergency communication channel. "Connect me with Admiral Reynolds immediately." Minutes passed before Reynolds' face appeared on the main screen. Behind him, bridge officers worked calmly despite the battle raging outside. "Counselor Drox," Reynolds greeted with a polite nod. "What can I do for you?" "You can explain this deception," Vark bellowed before Drox could speak. "You presented yourselves as a minor power with limited capabilities." Reynolds raised an eyebrow. "We presented our actual fleet numbers and specifications. The Council made assumptions about our capabilities based on ship size. We never corrected those assumptions." "You deliberately misled us," Drox said, his voice steady despite his shock. "We allowed you to underestimate us," Reynolds corrected. "There's a difference." On the tactical display, the remaining Krell vessels were attempting to regroup. The drone swarms had split into multiple attack formations, methodically targeting and disabling ship after ship. "Your drone technology," Drox said. "It's far beyond anything in Council space." Reynolds nodded. "Humanity's history is filled with conflicts where the smaller force had to overcome larger, better-equipped opponents. We learned to value efficiency over size." "And the quantum linking?" Mox asked, unable to contain his scientific curiosity. "A necessary development," Reynolds replied. "Traditional command and control systems were too slow for our needs." General Vark glared at the human admiral. "When this Krell threat is dealt with, the Council will need to reassess Earth's status and territory allocation." Reynolds smiled thinly. "We look forward to those discussions, General. Now, if you'll excuse me, I have a battle to finish." The screen went dark, leaving the Council members to stare at each other in stunned silence. "All this time," Drox said quietly, "we thought we were being generous, giving them that small territory on the rim." Mox looked up from his console. "Sir, according to these readings, what the humans have done with that territory is remarkable." War Commander Grak's face was twisted with rage as he addressed his fleet captains. The holographic images of 40 Krell commanders flickered before him, many looking as stunned as he felt. "This is not over," Grak snarled. "Call in the reserve fleet. We will crush these humans with overwhelming force." On the bridge of the Terra, Lieutenant Davis looked up from his console. Sir, we're detecting multiple fold space ruptures. The Krell are bringing in reinforcements. Admiral Reynolds nodded calmly. How many? At least 200 additional warships, Davis reported. They're forming up behind the main fleet. The tactical display updated to show the massive Krell armada now gathering beyond Ellis's orbit. The initial attack force had been reduced to less than half its original strength, but with reinforcements, the Krell now outnumbered the human forces by a staggering margin. Reynolds opened a channel to all human ships. All captains, prepare for thunderstorm protocol. On the Council monitoring station, the observers watched with growing concern as the Krell reinforcements arrived. The humans fought well. General Vark grumbled. But not even their clever drones can stand against such numbers. High Counselor Drox activated the communication channel. Admiral Reynolds, the Council is prepared to dispatch emergency relief forces to Ellis. Our nearest battle groups can arrive within 12 hours. Reynolds appeared on screen, looking surprisingly untroubled by the massive enemy fleet gathering before him. Thank you for the offer, Counselor, but that won't be necessary. Admiral, Drox insisted, you face over 200 Krell warships. Your drone tactics, while impressive, cannot possibly. Reynolds interrupted politely but firmly. We have the situation under control. However, you might want to keep watching. I believe the Council will find what happens next. Educational. The communication ended, leaving the Council members staring at each other in confusion. Back on the Terra, Reynolds gave the order. All ships, execute Thunderstorm Protocol. Phase 1. Initiate. Throughout the Ellis system, the 12 human ships began to move. Rather than retreating or forming a defensive line, they accelerated toward each other, converging at a point directly between Ellis and the Krell fleet. What are they doing? Asked an Elorian diplomat in the Council chamber. On the display, the human vessels came to a stop, arranged in a precise three-dimensional pattern. Then, to the astonishment of the watching Council members, the ships began to transform. External panels slid away, revealing massive magnetic coupling systems. Structural components extended, connecting ship to ship. Within minutes, what had been 12 separate vessels had combined into a single, much larger construction. Magnificent, breathed Mox, the head technician. They've built ships with modular designs that can combine into different configurations. The new combined vessel began to pulse with energy. Weapon ports that had been concealed within the individual ships now aligned to form much larger weapon systems. Phase 2 ordered Reynolds from the central command module that had once been the Terra's bridge. Deploy all reserve drones. From the combined ship, a new wave of drones launched, larger than the previous ones, and clearly designed for heavy assault rather than swarming tactics. These new drones took formation around the central vessel, creating a layered defense and attack grid. On his flagship, War Commander Grak watched with growing unease. What trickery is this? Attack. Attack now before they complete whatever they're doing. The Krell fleet surged forward, hundreds of massive warships accelerating toward the single human construct and its cloud of drones. Phase 3, Reynolds said calmly. Activate the fold space capacitors. Energy began to gather around the human vessel, bending light in strange patterns. The drone formation shifted, creating precise geometric shapes that channeled and amplified the building energy. In the Council chamber, alarms blared as their sensors detected an enormous power spike. They're drawing energy directly from fold space, Mox exclaimed. That's theoretical technology. No one has. His words were cut off as a blinding flash erupted from the human formation. A wave of precisely modulated energy shot forward, sweeping through the advancing Krell ships. Wherever it touched, Krell shields collapsed and systems failed. In a single perfectly executed strike, nearly a third of the Krell fleet went dark. Reynolds opened a channel to the stunned Krell commander. That was just our opening move, War Commander Grak. Would you like to see what else we can do? The Galactic Council chamber had never been so quiet. Representatives from 27 species sat in stunned silence as they watched the final moments of the Krell fleet's retreat. The once mighty armada, reduced to less than a quarter of its original size, limped away from human space in disarray. High Counselor Drox finally broke the silence. "The official casualty report from the human forces, please." A young aide stepped forward. 7 damaged drones, sir. No human casualties." The chamber erupted in murmurs of disbelief. "Impossible," shouted General Vark, his massive fist slamming down on the table. "No one defeats a Krell armada without losses." The doors to the chamber slid open, and Admiral Reynolds entered. Unlike the first time he had appeared before the council, there were no sneers or dismissive glances. Every eye watched him with a new respect, and more than a little fear. "The council has called an emergency session to reassess Earth's status in the galactic community," Drox announced formally. "Admiral Reynolds, your demonstration has raised many questions." Reynolds nodded politely. "I'm happy to answer them." "You deliberately concealed your true capabilities," General Vark accused, though his tone lacked its usual aggression. "We shared exactly what the council asked for," Reynolds replied. "Number of ships, general specifications, territorial boundaries. You assumed our technology would mirror your own. That was never stated." Drox leaned forward. "Our sensors have been analyzing your system since the battle. You've established defensive networks throughout your territory. Hidden bases, automated outposts, drone factories, all in just 6 months." Reynolds smiled slightly. "Humans work quickly when motivated." "And the Fold space energy weapon?" asked the Elorian diplomat. "Our best scientists believe such technology was at least a century away from practical application. We found it necessary to accelerate our research," Reynolds said simply. The council chamber darkened as a holographic display activated in the center of the room. It showed the human territory, the small resource-poor sector they had been assigned on the galactic fringe. Now, however, the display revealed extensive development throughout the region. What had appeared to be worthless space was now filled with energy collection arrays, mining operations, and defensive installations. "You've turned a disadvantage into an advantage," Drox observed. "The isolation of your territory made it easier to conceal your activities." Reynolds nodded. "Earth has a long history of underdogs finding ways to overcome superior forces. We've learned to be resourceful." The hologram changed to show footage from Earth's archives. Historical battles where smaller forces defeated larger ones through strategy and innovation. The council members watched with growing understanding. "Why?" asked the Volari representative suddenly. "Why allow yourselves to be underestimated? You could have demanded better territory, more resources." Reynolds looked around the chamber, meeting the gaze of each council member. "Because sometimes it's better to be underestimated than feared. We wanted to know what kind of neighbors we had." On the display, the image shifted to show the early council meetings where the human fleet had been openly mocked. "And what did you learn about your neighbors, Admiral?" Drox asked quietly. "That some judge too quickly by appearances," Reynolds replied. "That others are willing to sacrifice the weak for their own protection, and that all of you have much to learn about efficiency and innovation." General Vark rose from his seat and approached Reynolds. The massive Dravax towered over the human admiral, but there was no intimidation in his stance now, only a warrior's respect. "I mock your tiny fleet," Vark said, his rumbling voice carrying through the chamber. Reynolds met his gaze steadily. "Until you saw they were human ships." Vark extended his massive hand. After a moment, Reynolds shook it. "The council proposes a new arrangement," Drox announced. "Earth will retain its current territory, with expanded rights for trade and movement throughout council space. In exchange, we request technological exchange programs, particularly in drone systems and energy efficiency." Reynolds nodded. "Earth is willing to share some of our advances." As the meeting concluded and formal agreements were drafted, the Elorian diplomat approached Reynolds privately. "This was your plan all along, wasn't it?" she asked. "To show rather than tell." Reynolds smiled. Sometimes, the best way to make a point is to let others discover it themselves. Throughout Council space, the story spread rapidly. How a fleet of just 12 ships had defeated the dreaded Krell. How size and numbers had proven meaningless against human ingenuity. How the smallest member of the Galactic Council had suddenly become one of its most important. No one mocked the tiny fleet again.